evening, my name is Rose Blaze and this is the Live Book Show. This evening I have with me Fredericka Charles, the author of The Diary of a Desperate Mother. Good evening, Fredericka.
Good evening. Good evening.
How are you this evening?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm fine and I'm
Good.
so happy to have you here this
Thank
evening.
you. It's lovely to be here.
Excellent. So normally I would start the show by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I am Fredericka Charles, as you said, and my parents were both born in Dominica.
Wow.
I am first generation. My parents were part of the Windrush generation.
Mine too.
Yes. Yeah. And I started off my life in the world of, I would say, as a PA.
Right.
But my dream was always to be an athlete or to be an actress.
Wow.
But my parents said, no, you go and work in an office, get a proper job. So that's what I did. And so I then worked in an office for about 10 years and then decided I don't like this.
Right.
So I would just work, and after a year of saving, I would travel maybe for a year, 3 months, come back, work, travel.
Right.
And on those little excursions, I decided that I loved health and fitness all the time, and I would exercise nearly every day.
Right.
And people in the villages would come and join me.
Nice.
And say, and I would have these little classes, and I thought, I love this. When I get back home, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Right.
Went back home, got a degree in health and fitness.
Yes, I've read that.
And then here I am today.
Yes, here you are today.
Yes.
And thank you for that. So your book, Diary of a Desperate Mother, was such a wonderful read.
Thank you.
It was practical, it was methodical, and it really is good for a mother who just wants somebody to be a friend. Just a practical pick-me-up. Pick me up. What do I do? Oh, what happens? Oh, I'm meant to feel this way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. It is such an easy book to read.
Oh, I'm glad.
So I wanted
Glad
to
hear that.
congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
and I'm
much.
hoping that, you know, our readers out there will enjoy reading it. So obviously here they can see. I urge everybody to get a copy. So in the preface of the book, you speak about the increase in eczema over the years. I've read something like in the last 3 years I've read here, 1 in 5 children suffer with the condition.
Yeah.
Which is like, wow. And then obviously my first thoughts went to, what is that about? Is it about the food? Is it about the MG in the foods? You know, what is causing this? But through the book you explore this. So the other thing that came to me, having read the book, was the psychological effects.
Yes.
People don't consider that. People don't consider the psychological effects of what's happening. The total focus is on what you were saying earlier when we were speaking, is the physical with the child, not even the fact that the child is a child.
Yeah, we do tend to zone in on the problem.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I'm guilty of that.
Okay.
Because when I had my son, it was like, oh, that skin is very dry and torn and sore and hot. I have to fix it, I have to fix it, I have to fix it. Oh, now it's okay. And then again. And then you just use all these little stages in your day to fix this problem.
Wow, you
Sometimes
became preoccupied and focusing
on the child.
The child's needs, emotional needs.
Yeah, and as much as, you know, it's not a deliberate neglect, but it is a neglect, and you do miss out on that enjoying. So I think it was many months down the line that I thought, hold on, I have to be enjoying these moments.
The child.
I was just so like, got to fix this, got to fix
Playing
this.
nurse.
Yeah.
Wow. So, you know, and as I've written here, that this book focuses on how to live with these conditions, which, like, you know, the medical journals don't really teach you those things, you know. So, you talked about the parent feeling frustrated and helpless and just wanting to empower and enable through this book. So thank you for that. So here I speak about the fact that you'd suggested we formulate a diary. How important is a diary?
Well, you know, keeping a journal of your child, what the child is going through, is probably the most important thing.
Wow.
Because then very quickly you can kind of see if there are any patterns. It could be you went to the shop, you popped into this place, you got this, you gave him a strawberry.
Right.
2 hours later, oh, this happened.
Yes.
Then you can think, oh, I gave him a strawberry. Or we popped into that shop the perfume smell was really strong in there.
Yeah.
You can start make different
Yes.
relationships
Yes.
about what's happening. And I think
Yes.
if I did that from the very beginning, I probably would have had some results very quickly,
But did you know?
very much quicker.
You
No,
didn't know
I
at that
didn't
time.
know. I didn't know. But in
Trust me.
hindsight, you
Right,
know,
right.
if I knew
Yes.
back then what I know
Yes,
now,
yes.
the journey would be quite different.
Yes.
So keeping a diary, and not really just for children with eczema and allergies, and this is really for caring for children, for parents that care for children that are maybe too young to even say,
To articulate.
oh, this hurts, or
Yeah,
I'm feeling this.
I understand.
You know.
Yes.
I think it's really important that parents write down things like emotionally how they felt, because how you feel is
Yeah.
going to reflect on your child.
Of course.
And if there's a lot of stress, or there was loads of visitors, or the weather, or whatever, it could be so many things. So you create this journal or diary of the things that happen,
Right.
and then you can say, oh, so things are much better when I keep
Relatable,
the
isn't it? You can
humidity
relate.
at this level,
Right.
and it's terrible when it's cold, when it's dry, and then you can just create your own prescription.
You become the researcher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. And in the book near the beginning, you've put in the disclaimer. You know,
Yes.
you're not a doctor. You're,
No.
you're not a medical professional to say these things. These are your experiences
Yeah.
as a mother raising a child with
Absolutely.
really extreme, eczema and allergies.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start the journey.
Yes.
So we have little Jaden, and from a very young age, from his first year, you're told he has dry skin. So you're creaming, you're moisturising. By year 2, however, he has severe allergies. And even in between that time, you start to have trips to the GP,
Yeah.
trips to hospital.
Yeah.
And so we'll go into that. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about pregnancy and giving birth, because you spoke about that in the book. What is it that you'd like to share with us about that, ideally?
Gosh. Do you know, my dream was that I was going to have my baby, and I wasn't going to have any epidural, anything like that. I was just going to breathe and meditate, and it was just going to be lovely. And I visualized how it would be. It was just going to be one of those easy births that you just go, oh, here you are. Hello.
Wrapped in white swaddling, here you are.
It didn't quite work out like that. So I had
no.
24 hours of labour, which was, oh my gosh.
Sorry.
It was so difficult. It was such a difficult time.
Wow.
And after struggling to give birth to my son, and I had already said I don't want an epidural. I'm just going to do it naturally. Gas and air. Gas and air is all I need. And then I'm just like, epidural. So I get hooked up to an epidural, and maybe like 16 hours
had passed.
it's like, well, we're gonna actually give you a cesarean now, Miss Charles, because baby's not coming. I was like, no way. I cannot have gone through this all for now to go and have a cesarean. I don't want it.
How traumatic was that?
I just didn't want to have it. And then I said, okay, they said, okay, we won't do it, but we're just going to put you in the theatre and get you ready. I said, no. Please, can I stay here for just another 2 hours? If it doesn't happen, then we'll do it. And then they allowed me. And I literally because I had the epidural, I found it really hard to push.
Yes, because you didn't know
can't
when
feel
the
anything.
contractions were coming.
And so I had to imagine myself in the gym doing a last squat or a last bicep curl. And then I was able to give birth, but not after a cut and a ventouse.
Yes.
So it was a very stressful delivery for my son as well. Because,
yes, exactly.
Because every time the contractions came, his heartbeat was going down a bit.
Oh.
So
becoming distressed.
Yes, and also they were putting this little scalpel in and taking blood from his head. I was just like, what are you doing? They said, oh, we're just checking his blood. I said, but that's got hair on it. That's his head. And that must be so painful for him. I said, well, we have to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually he gets pulled out with the ventouse, and he comes out looking like, what did you guys do? Yeah, absolutely. What did you guys do to me, And then it was just beautiful to welcome him into the world after 24 hours of labour.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so very early on, we're talking about like at 7 weeks, you began to notice, you know, the skin abrasions and just things not working well, him becoming very distressed, and recognizing that it might be in what you're eating, the things that you're eating, like the wheat and the citrus fruit. So could you talk to us about the first year and what you'd learnt in terms of what he had intolerances to?
Yeah. So I suspected, so 7 weeks, I suppose I got really serious, but to be honest, by 5 days, I'm just like, his skin is so dry, but the doctor just said he was a bit late.
Yeah.
They say he's a bit late, but babies come when baby's ready, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a bit late, so his skin's dry.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've got dry skin, just slap on a bit of cream, you know, just cream it.
Yeah.
But the creams, all the creams, everything irritated him.
Oh.
And so I suspected that it was a bit more than just dry skin.
Right, right.
But the health visitors advised me, oh, he's okay, he'll be okay.
Wow.
So just over the weeks, depending on what I would eat, like as soon as he would breastfeed, he would get this rash. Maybe after about half an hour, he'd get these tiny little pinprick rashes.
Yes, yes.
And I would think, okay,
You're linking, you're starting to link.
I think that's what I'm eating. And I was absolutely in love with shredded wheat and Weetabix. And I loved wheat. So I cut that out of my diet. So that first morning feed was a little bit more comfortable for him. And I started just adjusting things.
Yeah.
I thought lemon irritated him.
Wow.
And it was just this instinct I would get. It's not like I had it and then I fed him and now I know.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling you get as a mother.
Yes.
You get this intuition.
Yeah.
Which we talk about like it's nothing, but it's actually everything. We need to follow it a bit more.
Bonded with your baby.
So in quite a short time, I cut wheat. So from my diet, because I was just breastfeeding him.
That's right.
Wheat, hydrogenated vegetable fats, because I knew they were no good anyway.
Yeah, they're no good.
All citrus, tomatoes,
Perfumes from what
sugar,
I read.
perfumes, newspapers,
Wow.
all those things
Really?
with strong smell.
Right,
I just wouldn't have it.
okay,
I wouldn't have it. So
okay.
I stopped moisturising my body with the creams that I was using and would just use olive oil. You know,
Right,
just really had to change things quite a bit. My washing soap, change life around because I thought, okay, if I do this, then he'll get better.
Yeah.
If I do this, then he'll get better. Then
Yes.
there'll be a little improvement.
Yes.
Oh, he'll get better now. And then he didn't. And this just kept going on. And I suspected that he had some quite severe allergies, or I would call them intolerances at the time.
Yes, yes.
And that if I was to take all those things out of his diet, then he would be more comfortable, which meant taking it out of my diet
Your
too.
diet, yes, because you're still breastfeeding.
Yeah. And so I had explained that to the doctors, and they said, there's no way what you're eating is going to affect him like that. I said, how can it not?
I wouldn't
because
be convinced
that's
of
my
that if you're
food.
breastfeeding.
I'm breastfeeding, of course it's going to affect him.
And this was one of the reasons I know why you didn't wean too early, because you weren't sure what the intolerances were.
Yeah.
So you said, well, I'm safer off breastfeeding where I can control what he eats until such time as, you know, I can have this checked out.
Yes.
So I know for weeks and weeks and weeks you were going to the GP. They then prescribed hydrocortisone.
Yes. They supplied
And about 10
antihistamines. They supplied lots of different things like, so mostly, the steroids.
Yes, steroids.
Antihistamines, stronger steroids on my little baby.
Oh,
you know? And because his skin was quite opened,
yeah.
I thought, well, that's going straight into his blood system. Like, that can't be all right. And although I didn't know a lot about it, I just didn't feel good about it.
No, I hear you.
And so many of the doctors didn't like the fact that I would say, I don't feel good about this.
That you challenge them.
Just do it. You have to do this because
my
this is what
goodness.
is going to help your child. And I know that hydrocortisone has a big part to play in inflammation, and
does.
eczema is an inflammatory disease.
Wow.
But when his skin is so open, and I would put it on and his skin would just go bright red, so it was irritating him.
Wow.
So I would think,
wow.
I don't think this is right for him right now. I actually need to heal him from the inside. But I didn't actually understand what I meant by that.
Right.
But I knew that the disease was coming from the inside and coming out. But obviously he has to be comforted from the outside in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was reading it and I was like, oh, at 17 weeks here, I've got weepy cheeks, you know, because you touched him or something, or you'd kissed him.
Oh my God.
You know, and the poor child, you know, is just suffering. And so there was a point then when you came to thinking, the system is failing my child.
Yeah.
The system is failing my child.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
So you would use mittens, yeah? And this was to stop him from
Scratching himself.
Wow.
So I would cut his nails every day. Because if you've had a baby, you know their nails grow every day. And they're just these thin little things, but they're like little blades.
Razor
they're
sharp,
very
isn't
sharp. So I'd cut his nails every day. I'd put on mittens. And then I'd have to sew the mittens on to onto his baby grow.
Trying to pull it off.
Yeah. And
wow.
but he would just get so frustrated. Obviously he'd get quite hot.
Wow.
Because you just want your skin to be out. You know, eczema is a hot disease, and you definitely don't want to be covering up the skin. But
and this is something my grandson went through actually. He couldn't bear to wear clothes.
Yes.
You know, in his room, his window was always cracked open because if he got hot, he got flustered, and he couldn't manage himself. He really was distressed.
yes.
So your son now is at the point where nothing seems to ideally be working, and he's being admitted to Guy's Hospital, Guy's and Thomas's Hospital.
Yeah, we were.
Me reading you in there,
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was
that was such a difficult time because my son, by then, he had been back and forth to the GP, and because his skin was so open, he would get infections. And I learned to identify it by just smelling
it.
I'd be, that infection's back. Oh my gosh, what can I do? Back to the GP, put him on more antibiotics.
Yeah.
And I know that too many
20 weeks old.
antibiotics, too many antibiotics, it weakens the system in that, you know, years later when you need it, your body's immune to it.
It hasn't built any immunities of its own. Can't fight back.
Yeah, and it gets rid of all the flora.
Yeah.
And of course, again, it has a place to, it has a great part to play in health.
Yes, but
if somebody has a chronic disease and they're going to have to take it all the time, that cannot help him.
No.
And so that night we were admitted into the hospital, and that was the time that my son was stuck to the bed. He was stuck to the bed, and we were admitted to a local hospital. The doctor came and said, okay, your son has a very severe infection. He was stuck to the bed.
When you say stuck to the bed, explain that to the viewer.
So he had eczema on all of his body, except for his bum cheeks.
Okay.
Sorry, Jaden.
Bless him.
But all the skin started weeping, like a sticky thing. And so he just got stuck to the bed.
People can't imagine that,
No.
you know, unless you've been through it.
Yeah.
You can't imagine that.
Yeah. And it was horrendous, and he was really listless. So normally he'd be like scratching and complaining, you know, because he was so uncomfortable. He was just listless. So I called the GP, came around straight away and said, okay, we're going to call an ambulance now, and they're going to take him to our local hospital, which happened to be, it was going to be Homerton.
Right.
And I had done some research and found out that Guy's and St Thomas's had a specialism in skin disease. And I asked if I could go there. They said, we can give you a letter for there, but you have to take yourself there. So we took ourselves there. Yeah. And we were admitted. And it was just so horrendous. So he comes in and he's stuck to the sheet. And the lady's asking me, the nurse is asking me lots of questions. Was he social worker? And I'm just like, what do you think I've done to him? What do you think this is? This
social worker?
Yeah. And, you know, all these questions, and you know.
But how would one come to that assumption that that he has a social worker? How soul destroying is that?
Yeah, it was, because I was trying to do my best, and it wasn't working because he was getting infected all the time. They put him on a drip, an intravenous drip into his little hands.
Yes.
And we were there for a few days, and then he had another 5 days of oral antibiotics to take. Yes. We went home. The infection was clearing up. I was told I had to finish the tablets, which I did. Then 2 days later, I could smell it again. Could smell it in his neck. Could smell it. Went to the GP. He said, he's got an infection. Here's a prescription.
Again.
I said, but he's just come off it. No, he has to take it again. Went back to the guys in St Thomas's. They said, yes, take the prescription. Go again.
20-week-old baby.
Yeah.
23 weeks maybe by then.
I decided that I wasn't going to do it, that I would get in touch with somebody, see if there was another way. And that's when I found this lady called Vanessa. She was a naturopathic practitioner. Went to see her. It was £60 an hour back then. It was a lot of money for us. Yeah. And we went in, and she just said, The infection's not massive. 1 drop of tea tree oil into his bath, morning and night.
Right.
And that will keep the infection
Perfect.
at bay. Eventually, we had no more problems with his skin.
And she also recommended certain foods that you should give him at that time. Wet food like greens, vegetable, pumpkin, squash. I've got that written down here.
Food that wouldn't absorb the moisture from him.
Okay.
So even my idea that he was intolerant to wheat, it was a different, because he was having it through my milk.
Yes.
It was still correct, because if I had given that to him, wheat absorbs your moisture.
Yeah.
And he didn't have any moisture to give. He was a very thirsty baby because his skin was open, so the water would just come
Water would just leave.
Yeah.
And what was so beautiful about that is that I got a sense of release, as well.
I was very happy.
You've got a solution in part.
Yes.
And it was kind of working.
Yes, yes.
So now, moving forward a little, we get to a 6-month-old baby. And I then sat and listened to your journey, trying to enlist him into nursery. What a palaver. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So he was 2 years and 6 months. That was that problem happened there.
Yeah.
And I thought it's time. It was just me and Jaden. And it was like, okay, now I have to get him into nursery so I can have a bit of a break as well.
Yeah, and get him some socialising with younger children.
And so many nurseries would show us around and say, okay. And then I would talk to them about his condition, fill up the forms and say, oh, sorry, we haven't got the staff to look after somebody with such severe
Can you imagine?
health problems.
Wow.
He's got severe health problems. He's got eczema and allergies. This is just what you have to. They said, no, we're going to have to make sure that all kids wash their hands. I thought kids had to wash their hands anyway.
Exactly.
We're going to have to make sure that these types of foods aren't taken into the nursery. We're going to have to look at the moisturisers that we're putting on if we're going to touch him. It was a big thing for them. So they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him.
So then I know you went to the Department of Education and spoke to them, and they found you a nursery.
Yeah, they found me an excellent place.
Okay.
You know.
Can you tell me a little bit about that nursery?
So we went to visit them, and they were just like arms open.
Arms.
They made all the changes.
Oh,
I said,
excellent.
okay, kids have to wash their hands when they come into nurseries. No more can we bring these certain foods into nurseries. They would just say, we can't have those foods. So it was nuts.
Wow.
They asked the parents to make sure their kids didn't have any, even in their little bags and stuff.
That was so good.
Very
for them
good
to
of
do
them.
that.
I trained them on. By that time, Jaden had EpiPen. I trained them on the EpiPen and how to take care of my son throughout the whole day, because he had to be moisturised every 20 minutes.
Right. Wow.
Every 20 minutes.
Wow. And then in his baths, he had to have a certain amount of salt. I understand he had to have reduced a sodium in his baths, not to over-irritate or dry the skin as well.
Well, we would use Volvic.
Water?
I'd bathe him with Volvic.
Really?
Because it was a really good balance for him.
Right.
We wouldn't use the bath water after that. We would just buy litres and litres of water every week.
Wow.
And use that to bathe him.
Right. That is excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so even at that point now, you were thinking more in terms of developing his dietary needs and nutrition. So you started introducing omega-3, 6 and 9 oils. And the GP stopped it after a while.
Yeah. So they said, oh, we've got no clinical proof that this works.
That's right. That's
But we're willing to try it for a little while. So that was primrose oil. Primrose oil have to be taken like really over a long period of time, but it's very good. And I think after, I think it was 3 months, they might have done it for 3 months, and then they said, okay, this hasn't made any big changes, so we're stopping it. That was fine. We just bought it ourselves.
Yeah.
It was fine.
How old was he at this point?
I think he
How old
was
Jaden?
at that time, he was probably about 1.5.
Oh, right, okay.
But we did these things ourselves, and we also did aloe vera.
Yes.
We did aloe vera gel.
Yes.
To put on his skin.
We
did
that.
the aloe vera drink, which tastes so bad, but we had this little thing that we would do. He would drink it like a teaspoon, and he was able to do a crazy dance or a crazy move. He would go, ugh. So he would it became a bit of a game for him. And now he still has it now. He'll still have that aloe vera drink, which is aloe vera is just amazing for the body.
Yes, it is.
And
as is sea moss, I hear.
Yes.
92% the minerals. So
it's very good. There's so many wonderful things
out there now.
So he would have that, and that wasn't prescribed by the GP, but we would get it ourselves.
Yes.
propolis cream, very good for the body.
Okay.
So we had that prescribed, but I didn't quite like the one that they prescribed. There was another one that I wanted them to pay for it, but they didn't,
Yeah,
and that was fine.
to.
So we got that ourselves. You just find the things that work.
And what I noticed as well, Fredericka, is that you guys sacrificed so much in terms of ensuring he had what he needed, regardless of the cost. It's about the quality of his life. To the extent that, you know, you started speaking in the book, and I actually didn't think about it at that point, that you stopped working and you hadn't gone back to work after having him.
Yeah.
So there was that financial, how can I say, lacking.
Absolutely.
And what did you do?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. I used credit card. My husband at the time worked, so that helped a bit.
Yeah.
But I would want to take him to this practitioner who lived in East Essex, this Sussex, all these different places. We would go on these, we would go everywhere to find a cure, and I would just use credit cards. And that didn't matter. It just didn't matter how much it cost.
But it's important to mention that because, again, mothers or fathers or parents coming into this need to recognise all different facets of the impact of having a child with such severe allergies and eczema. So the other thing that I noticed you started to do, which I really liked, was you joined the National Eczema Society. So you were now trying to educate yourself and be a researcher for yourself, which was brilliant. Again, you went on to talk about battling with the doctors, and then you then spoke about peer fable research, which was confirming what all that Vanessa had said about what's in his best interest to eat, drink, whatever, which was brilliant. So again, this is you just making a concerted effort to educate yourself about what's in his best interest.
And to become his expert.
Yeah.
To become the one that can look after him.
That's right, that's right.
I mean, the peer fab research was to say that the gut, with somebody that has such bad eczema, the gut is a reflection.
Right.
The skin is a reflection of the gut. Okay. So the gut actually leaks.
Wow.
The gut is not properly knit together. So he needed time for his gut to knit together fully. So by breastfeeding him, that was the best thing to do. And by giving him whole foods, it would leak through the gut, and the body would say, "What is this?" And then it would react adversely.
Yes.
A reaction. He'd get a reaction from it.
Right.
So it was about healing the gut. And this research happened at Aven in France.
Yes.
And the water there, which you used on the skin and you had to drink it all day long, was to heal the gut.
Wonderful.
The healing comes from the gut. And for disease, I mean, many amazing health practitioners says all disease starts from the gut.
And that's such an interesting thing, isn't it? You just wouldn't think it.
No.
So I know we're going to come back to Avan, but first I'd like you to talk to us about something you spoke about in the book, which was so practically helpful. And this was the bandaging and the different types of bandaging. Could you speak to our viewers about the bandaging, please?
So we had electroplast.
Yes,
electroplast.
electroplast.
And that was impregnated with zinc and other minerals that could soothe the skin. And so you would literally bandage
the body,
the whole body with it, and it was
Wow.
very creamy and heavy.
Yes.
And it was a lovely relief
for
him.
him.
Sometimes I'd put it in the fridge before I applied it.
I liked that.
And in the morning his skin would be so already so
supple and
beautiful and cool and happy.
Yes.
I would want to keep it on all the time.
Right.
But I couldn't. Yeah. Because the skin needs to breathe.
Right. And then there was the tubular type.
Yeah. And these are excellent. They're called Tubifast.
Right, okay.
And they're literally just long tubes that you could just
slip
place
on
on
arms
their
and
arms,
legs.
but you would wet them.
Right.
You would smother them with moisturizers. Smother the skin with moisturizer as well. Put those Tubifast on, soak in, wet, warm, and then put a dry one on top. Of course, the child is very hot.
Wow.
But you just have the windows would be open. I'd be cold in my house all the time because the windows had to be open all the time. The fans would have to be on.
Yes.
And that again would help the skin so much. You'd get tubey vests, tubey pants,
Thank you for
but just tubes that you could just put on like these little tights.
Yeah, because we have to remember, you know, you're people, you're individuals. You need sleep, you need rest. And this wasn't happening because he was constantly suffering and being tortured by this condition. So, okay, so if we can move back forward, if we can go back forward to the Avon Health Spa.
Yeah,
Talk to Avon.
Oh,
Speak to us about that, because I know from what you'd said is that you can get this on the NHS.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that and where it is.
So Avon is in the north of France. It's up in the mountains. And it is a place where it first came to notice in the 17th century, where people would just go there and bathe in the streams. If you had burns or any skin ailments, you'd go there and bathe in the streams. And so that little village now has built a spa on top of it, and they direct the water so it comes straight into their spas.
Excellent.
They have jacuzzi baths, they have showers, they have all these different water therapy treatments. And children come there from all over the world, mostly with eczema, some with
burns,
some people come with severe burns,
Yeah.
some people come with psoriasis, some people come with acne, any skin problems, you go there. And they prescribe you a treatment. So you go to see them, you come, everyone arrives on a Sunday, you go to see the doctor there, he prescribes your treatment. You will have, so for example, my son would have this jet spray that would be sprayed on the thickened parts of his skin to help to break down the thickness.
Right.
And then he had this shower. The shower would come out from every angle of the shower booth. And then it would come with big droplets, and then it would come in a fine mist so that the skin could absorb it. He'd have a place where he would go now in a lounge area, and they would softly put gauze all over his skin, and my job was to wet them all the time for half an hour so this moisture could go into the skin.
Into the skin.
And then he had this jacuzzi bath. So there was all these different water treatments. Plus, the doctor might prescribe some of their products as well. So Avon do a range of beautiful moisturizers and like cold creams and just waters and different creams for the child.
I mean, when I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, paradise, I need to book in. It sounded absolutely wonderful. And I know in and amongst all of that, because you are constantly seeking answers, looking for remedies and ways forward. There was a cream that a gentleman spoke to you about called Wawa.
Yeah.
And I understood that you initially thought that this cream was doing a wonderful job. You'd gone, as you do as a researcher, to find out from your GP the current
the status of it. Like
the consultant is what I'm thinking. You'd
yeah.
had a discussion with them about it, and they were telling you no, they weren't versed to it, saying that actually it's full of steroids and it's unstable. And
well,
blah,
actually,
blah, blah.
I went and bought the cream because it was highly recommended. And I spoke to some mums who had used it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to get this now. So I'm like ringing this guy in the night. It's like 10:30. Can I get it now? It's like, no. But you can get it tomorrow. What time? I had to meet him at Leytonstone Station, 9 o'clock that next night.
All right.
Give him £30 for this little bottle of cream.
Wow.
Got home. I was too impatient.
Yeah.
Put a bit on his hand. Okay, he's at work. 3 hours later. Looks all right. Do his whole arm then.
Yeah.
It looks great. Looks great. Just started putting on his whole body for maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I used it. It was fantastic.
Right, okay.
It was fantastic. The eczema went.
Okay.
The eczema went. He was calm. He was happy. He was great. Right?
Okay.
So the eczema went, and then it was just healing over. And then I had an appointment to go back to guys in St Thomas's Hospital.
That's right. Yeah.
To go and check, see how he is.
Regular check.
And I'm there going, I ain't got to come back to this place anymore, my sons. So I'm speaking to people in the waiting room, and some are very sceptical. I don't want to know. They don't want to know.
Yeah.
And some are saying, okay, give me the details. I'll call you later.
Yeah.
And eventually I go in to see the consultant, and I tell him, look at my son. He's great. Look at this. And he says, so what are you using? I said, I'm using this Wawa cream. He hadn't heard of it. And he said, oh, it's probably packed with steroids. And, what do you know about this? And I said, well, it's working on my son. So anyway, I go off, and then I start doing research, and I start a different research, and I start finding people saying, oops. And then I had gone to give him gone back to the hospital to give them a sample because they said they would check it out.
Yes.
And it was
Packed
full of
with
steroids. And it wasn't even blended properly, so there were lumps here, and then just some kind of blender cream in another place. Stopped using it that night. Within 24 hours, his skin just came back with the
vengeance.
eczema just came back with a vengeance. Because what high doses,
yes,
high
of
levels
course.
of steroid do is push eczema into the body.
Right, okay.
And I'm not saying it as an expert, but this is what it looked like to me, because I know that steroids can have a place.
Yes.
But this was now not used on his skin, and his skin just screamed. It just all came out.
Yeah.
So where was it?
Yeah.
It was just being pushed in.
Yes.
That's what it looked like to me.
Wow. Wow. And I hear that, and you know, after that, and then from what I recall reading, you then went through this psychological battle of, oh my God, what have I done? Oh God, what's happened? Now it's about fixing it, putting it right. But through the years, you guys have managed, and he's now blossomed into a beautiful, beautiful young man who is very, from what I've read, athletic and very mindful of what to eat, drink, and whatever, because I know that Jaden did his own little diary at the back of the book, which I was so grateful for. I thought that was so wonderful.
Yeah.
You can see he's very confident, he's very aware. Like I said, for example, if he goes swimming, he knows that he has to shower thoroughly and then cream. I mean, he just has such an acute awareness of everything. And one thing I remember reading was that you had a birthday party for him and you had cake. Everybody ate cake, and he said, your mum doesn't know if I remember this.
Yes.
But I just sat there looking at everybody eating my cake. But you know what Mum did? Mum then prepared something especially for me.
Yes.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I'd make him his own cake.
Yes.
But for where we were in our church at the time, and there was a party for his first birthday, and so I didn't make the cake for everyone.
Yeah.
I just got them a cake, and he's like, he can remember it. I'm just like, oh.
And he wasn't sure if you remembered it. I was laughing. I thought that was so funny.
I remember it, but I said to him, I don't think you remember that. He says, I do. So
He did.
I can't argue with him.
He did.
Yeah.
And you know what was also very nice is that you had 2 additional stories of other parents whose children had suffered a similar, you know, from a similar thing.
Yes.
And it was very nice for them to be able to share their stories as well. So you didn't feel, well, I'm alone here.
Yeah.
And at the same time, this book is actually for us, so we want to be represented within the book. So I liked that. I actually liked that.
Thank you.
So now I'd like for us to look at the references at the back of the book, because I actually felt that this was so good for mothers just wanting to know, fathers wanting to know what next. So I go to page 157. And it starts with references, and it talks about allergies and intolerances. It talks about general, and it talks about Jaden's. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about some of the intolerance and some of the allergies to the viewer, so they know the types of things that baby can have and babies can't have, or children can and cannot have.
Well, you know, it's so impossible, actually, to say what babies can have and what they can't have.
Interesting.
Because every child is individual. And it's up to the parents to find that out for themselves, to create that world of harmony. And you know that your child can have this, they can't have that. When they have this, little bumps come up. But when they have something else, it's more severe. So, for example, if my son would have sugar, he would get, within 2 hours, he would get a rash all over. And if he would have, let's say, a drop of milk, he would have an anaphylactic reaction. So there were differences between intolerances and allergies.
Degrees, yeah.
And so we have to know for our own child, because what my son was allergic or intolerant to would be different for you. And every person is different, although there are those very common ones. And lots of people suffer from these common allergies.
Right.
It could be eggs, nuts.
Right, yes, the general.
Dairy, right, those ones. But maybe kiwi. My son has a kiwi
Yes,
allergy.
I saw that. Yes.
And
this is when you kissed him, wasn't it? No. This was,
that was
he
when
went
he was
to a
at
party
nursery.
or a nursery, yes.
And he picked one up. Didn't like the feel, and then rubbed his face.
Yes. Wow.
And I
the
was
allergy
so used
testing
to this.
was so important.
It was so important, but it wasn't. I wasn't allowed to have it.
Yeah, wow.
And you know, I say I wasn't allowed to have it, like I was this victim, but I didn't have the money to go and do it myself, and I didn't think that mattered because I knew what he was allergic to, and I knew what he was intolerant to.
Yes.
So he has these allergy tests, when he's around 2, and they say, wow, all those allergies you said he has them.
Yeah, you see.
How did you know? And I was like, well, I'm his mum.
I'm his mum.
I'm his mum, I know. You feed him, this happens.
Yes.
We know. We know so much more than we think we know.
And they're not listening to you always.
No, because it's not clinically tested.
Yes, yes.
But, you know, a naturopathic practitioner would listen to you. Somebody who has a different
perspective
idea
on
about
stuff.
what health is.
Yes.
Not, okay, this book says this,
generic.
this, so
So
no,
generic.
he hasn't got it. I mean, you know, there was this awful time where we were in the hospital. My son had developed pneumonia.
Wow.
And
I don't remember reading that.
Yeah. He had
Is it in the book?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
He had this terrible cough, and we go to the hospital, he's admitted, and they have a look at him and they say, actually, his bones look like they're a little bit bent.
The rickets. I did read that.
I think your son has rickets.
Yeah.
So, yes, so they do the x-ray, they see rickets, they do the blood test, they see rickets.
Yes.
And what are you doing with your son? I think that time he was 7 months.
Yes, that's right.
And I said, well,
Just
he's got all
breastfeeding.
this, he's got all this severe allergies, he's got this, and he's got this.
That you haven't got clinical proof about?
No proof about it. So they tell me off. And
I recall reading it now.
And so it's almost to say, well, you've restricted his diet so much, you've made him sick.
Yes, yes.
He has rickets and
deficiency of vitamin D,
and
wasn't
many
it?
deficiencies of other
vitamins
and minerals.
Yes.
And I left. They said, where does it say he's allergic to milk?
Yes.
Go home and feed him milk.
Where doesn't it say?
Yeah.
Oh, and look what happened.
And I go home and feed him milk.
That was horrible.
Feeling so guilty.
That was so horrible.
But apprehensive. And I give him a spoon and I call the ambulance because he has an anaphylactic reaction. And I'm so mad with myself that I listened, that I didn't just go with my gut. And it was a horrendous
But it's you and
time.
all and everybody, isn't it? It's you and all of them. And people have this view, don't they, that doctors know it all.
And doctors are amazing.
They
Let's
are.
not get this wrong.
To be
but
fair.
doctors need to work with patients and they need to work with parents, you know.
Yeah.
Jaden was my first child. He's my only child.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, this is mama. She's overreacting. She's just being, you know, just over. How can you overreact? It's your baby.
You know your baby. You spend every day with your baby.
That was hideous. And I swore then I would never, ever
do it again.
I would never listen again. That's why I said I wouldn't listen again. And just went on to, I just promised my son I would take care of him because you can't have a stranger say, I mean, they never met us before. But the x-ray showed he had rickets. Wow. And the x-ray showed he had deficiencies. And the reason he had those deficiencies wasn't because of me. My son was born in February. It was cold. He had severe eczema.
Yes.
So his skin was bandaged. There was no sunshine. He's black. He's going to get rickets.
He's going to have a deficiency.
And because he has such severe eczema,
his
tummy leaks.
Yes.
So the vitamins and minerals cannot absorb. It's not my fault.
That was the thing I'd read.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was, so that was around the same time.
So could you repeat that again? Why it couldn't absorb,
So if you have, and my son was born in February. Black people are deficient of vitamin D in the winter. We need the sun. So my son was, so he's born in February. Plus he has to be bandaged from top to toe. Plus he's not going out because it's cold and he's got such severe skin. Right.
So he's going to be susceptible,
so
isn't he?
he isn't getting any sunshine.
Right.
Of course he's going to get it.
Yeah.
If I knew back then what I know now, I would have put him on a vitamin D supplement for babies.
Yes.
That should have been prescribed for any child that is born in any black child that is born in the winter months.
With those conditions.
Yes. And without them even.
Yes.
You know?
I understand.
So I felt quite relieved, but it did take a long time to find that information out. It's like, oh God, it wasn't my fault because I was just trying my best to take care of my boy. When I found out he had eczema, I was just like, okay, he has this. That's okay. I'm a solution finder.
Yeah.
I'm going to solve this. I'm going to sort it out, babe. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it.
Oh, God. Because I know so many times in the book you'd actually cried and said, Lord, help me, please.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
You know, you were so guilt-ridden over things that perhaps you shouldn't have been, like you've just said.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just such a soul-wrenching journey.
Yeah.
So you go on to personal tips and remedies. So you start to you encourage people to seek professional advice about allergies. You know, animals and the impact they have on children, because that was another thing my grandson really couldn't have. You know, animals around him in the house. Whoosh, you know, chemicals, having a cool environment, emotional stress. And this was something that, you know, was there regardless. Establishing a routine. How important was establishing a routine?
I mean, it's so important. In the first few months, maybe even the first year, I didn't have no routine. It was like, what needs to be done, done, done. You just
Very
like
reactive.
this. Yeah, and there wasn't like, at 9 o'clock we do this, because his skin demanded what it needed. I didn't know what time that would come.
Yes.
So we would wake up. He would wake up every 45 minutes.
Wow, wow.
And so I didn't
Through the night
sleep.
as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and so he was very sleep deprived. I was very sleep deprived. And I would think on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody.
Wow, wow.
I just got on with it. I just got on with it because it's like, it was kind of like I was embarrassed that I wasn't coping.
But how are you able to reason that for yourself? You know, apart, you know, you're now beginning to express that. You know, you were embarrassed to acknowledge or admit that you couldn't cope. But I mean, were there any other things that you were feeling at that time? I mean, that's a really good point to talk about. I think for you to expound on.
Yeah, I think in my head, I can just make everything happen. That's what I think. I think I'm a superwoman. And so when I had him, my poor little baby, I am your guardian angel.
I'm your rescuer. I'm your savior.
Rescuer.
Yeah.
And when you can't do that as a mum, that's
so debilitating.
So tough.
Oh.
It's so tough because you've got this little baby that can't even say to you, and they just
And I can see it's impacting you now. Oh, bless you.
They just look at you and say, "Help me."
Help, and you can't.
And you can't. You know?
Oh my gosh, that must have been horrible.
It's so horrible. I mean, looking back now, back, like if I meet parents, because I ran a Tuesday's self-help group
I remember
at my
reading
local
that,
library for a little while, and I'd have parents come in tears. Guilt-ridden, and I'd say, no.
And it's impacting you even now.
Yeah.
It's affecting you.
Because it's very emotional. It's very emotional.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, having written the book and periodically reading it again and reading it all the way through again, because I published this in 2014.
Yes.
And reading it again, like I cried.
Yes, yes.
And there were some bits
I can see it's affecting you now. Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, it takes a lot to watch your child suffer. And I remember going to my GP. Oh, my voice has changed. I remember going to my GP and saying to him, my son's skin is just like, it's falling, it's like coming off. It's just coming off.
And
like
he's screaming,
and
crying, tortured.
Yeah. And I'd go all the time, like, what can we do today? Because I don't know what to do. And he said to me, I've just had to tell some parents that their young child, I think that he said the child's 9 years old, has liver cancer. And you're coming here every day.
Minimizing what is a really harrowing experience for you and your child.
Yeah. I mean, I left.
Belittling.
I didn't ask him anything. I left.
So not only you're psychologically affected to the point where you are feeling, even now I can see you're feeling tearful. So can I imagine what you were feeling that day?
Yeah.
And then to be told, what are you fussing about?
Yes.
This boy's going to die.
Yeah.
Your child's alive, isn't he?
Yes.
That's what he's telling you. How dare he do that?
Yeah.
How dare he do that?
And you know, at the time I was very angry and you know, it was quite, you know, during one of those desperate times I thought, this is so horrendous. I don't know what to do. But I'm going to write a book about this so the whole world can know how ridiculous this situation is.
It is, though.
How awful.
That's the truth.
And that's why I wanted to write it.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I thought, no, I want to write a book.
Let's make peace.
So that people can know what they can do. I think the doctors were as frustrated as me, and every time they'd be like, oh, well, that woman's there, I don't know what to say to her.
She's here again.
Yeah. They're not God.
No.
They don't know what to do.
No.
And I needed somebody to just blame for a second, you know,
Yes.
to say, why can't you do better than what you're doing?
Yeah,
But,
other than yourself on occasion.
yeah. And so I was very angry for a little while, and then it was like, well, actually, this is my responsibility.
Yeah.
And one day I'm going to know the reason why we had to go through this. And I thought, when I was deciding to write the book, it's like, there's no way we can go through a life like this and then one day just say, oh, it's okay now. and not have documented it.
Yeah.
No, that needed to go down. That was too much.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's framed the person you are now. It's framed the person Jaden is now.
Yeah,
He's such a
absolutely.
strong, resilient young man from what I'd read from his own personal diary at the back of your book.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking to you now, you know, you've got so much vitality. It's a joy, honestly, to listen to how it's kind of, how can I say, framed you as a person.
Yeah.
You know, here, towards the end of Personal Remedies and Tips, you've said, sleep.
Oh, Lord.
Rest, relax, and have fun. People don't understand how important that is.
No.
And a beautiful picture here of you and Baba.
Yeah.
So if my viewers and listeners want to see what that looks like, you have to get a copy for yourself. You then go on to talk about things, you know, products that will help. So you speak about aloe vera, chamomile, evening primrose oil, tea tree oil. You speak about moisturizers, yeah? You speak about so many things here, double base cream, and these are things that are generally prescribed. And then you go on to talk about organisations who offer help and support. And I know that you developed a really close bonded relationship with a gentleman at the Applejack store in Stratford.
Robert.
Right, because Robert was there. He listened to you. He listened to you. He, you know, gave you what you needed. He was empathetic. He, you know, he was compassionate. And this is what you needed when we go back again to the psychological needs of this situation.
Robert Stevenson at Applejacks in Stratford. I mean, absolutely amazing man. So many times I'd go in there and I would just be crying, and he would just give me a hug or give me something to try. And it was that family that introduced me to the aloe vera. And then I got involved with the aloe vera products.
The aloe vera products are brilliant.
Because
they're expensive, but it's worth it.
It's very much worth it.
It's worth it.
And sometimes you just need somebody to hear you.
Just to listen.
Just to hear you.
You speak about the eczema parent circle and the eczema voice. Yeah? So this is so helpful in that you talk about so many things. And then we come to the two parent stories, which I really loved to listen to at the back of the book. A brilliant read. It is a really heart-rendering read, of a desperate mother. But I know now, and a beautiful picture of you and Jaden on the back, beautiful picture. And I want to thank you for your gift to us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I want everyone, you know, there'll always be a friend, a colleague, a child that you know or associated to who has this issue or suffers with these issues. Please, please, let the parent know so they can go and get a copy of this book. It is so good, simple. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's just simple. A mother's collection of information and research. And just, I can make this feel better. Remedies. So please get yourself a copy. Fredericka Charles, Diary of a Desperate Mother. Fredericka, thank you for coming on the show this evening. I really appreciated you being here.
Thank you.
Good night, viewers. I hope you enjoyed this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Good night.
Good night.